Shalom, and welcome to Parsha Highlights and Insights. This is Rabbi Abraham Fischer. This week's Parsha is Vayiggash. It is a continuation of what we had at the end of last week's Parsha, which ended with what one might call a cliffhanger uh, of Yosef saying to his brothers, and remember, they don't recognize him yet, although he recognizes them, that since his precious goblet was found in the sack belonging to Binyamin, so Binyamin will remain as a slave, and the rest of them should go back in peace, he says, to their father. Of course, there can be no peace for their father if they return without Binyamin. So the parasha opens with Vayiggash elav Yehuda, where Yehuda steps forward, he approaches in order to make his argument. He argues for Binyamin's release. He first says, "Please allow me to speak. You are like Paro." And then he reviews the events, most of which Yosef either knows or could guess. But there is one particular detail that Yehuda mentions that Yosef did not know in advance. Namely, after explaining what had happened, how Yosef wanted them to bring their brother, and their brother's very attached, their father's very attached to Binyamin, and he's making the argument that Yaakov would die if they come back without Binyamin. The detail that he adds is that he, Yehuda, took personal responsibility for Binyamin. He said to his father that if I do not return with Binyamin safe and sound, then I will be sinning before you forever. And as Chazal explained, that means both in this world and in the next world. And therefore, says Yehuda, because I have taken personal responsibility, I'm like a co-signer, I will remain as a slave in Binyamin's place. So that is Yehuda's argument. It's at this point that Yosef responds, and Yosef can no longer contain himself, very possibly because he has heard how much the brothers not only regret what they've done to him, but how they've made such a drastic change, and Yehuda's even taken personal responsibility. So he can no longer contain himself, so he reveals his identity to his brothers. But first he says that everyone must go out, and then he begins to cry. And he says, switching to Hebrew now, because up until this point, when in their presence he's spoken Egyptian, he says, "I am Yosef." And he says, this is all part of Hashem's plan. Don't be sad. Don't be distressed. Don't feel guilty. Hashem has sent me ahead to take care of the family during the famine. I've organized everything, and you will be able to live here. And therefore, send word to my father, tell father about me, tell father about the position that I now have, bring the entire family and all of the livestock, bring them all down to Egypt to live in Goshen, which will be close by where Yosef himself lives, and I will support you. And of course, at this point, Yosef cries, and he cries on his brother Binyamin's neck, and all of the brothers cry, and then finally they're able to talk about what has happened. The next part of the parasha, Paro, who hears about this, issues a command. He's very happy that Yosef's family is here, And he says, bring your family to live in Egypt. And Paro also gives the order to send wagons to transport the family, especially the father who's elderly. And don't worry about your possessions. Everything you need, you can obtain here. Yosef then sends his brothers to back to Canaan. He gives them all kinds of provisions for the road, food, clothing, whatever they might need, special gifts for the brothers, for Benjamin and for Yaakov, and he continues to reassure them that this will all be for the best. And as they leave, uh, he gives them the final instructions not to be distracted on the road, to focus and to go back to Canaan, tell father, and then bring everyone back. And so the brothers return to Yaakov. They tell Yaakov that Joseph is alive, and not only that, but that he is a ruler of Egypt. At first, Yaakov disbelieves, who can imagine? But when he sees the wagons, he is convinced that this must be true, and Yaakov makes the decision that uh, Yosef must be alive, and therefore I'm going to go down to Egypt and see him while I'm still alive to do so. And so Yaakov and his entire family descend to Egypt. On the way, Yaakov stops in Beersheba, and there he offers sacrifices to Hashem, and Hashem speaks to him for what seems to be the last time, certainly recorded in the Torah, of Hashem speaking directly to Yaakov. And he says, do not be afraid of going down to Egypt. I will go down with you, and eventually I will bring you up from that place. And so they begin the journey down to Egypt, and it's at this point that the Torah gives a full account of the entire family. Uh, the children divided up according to the mothers. Leah's children, number 33, because we are also including Yocheved, who was only born as they enter the land of Egypt. So she's not listed among those who leave Canaan, but she's number 33. The children of Zilpah, 16. The children of Rachel, 14. And the children of Bilhah, 7, for a total of 70. 70 souls in the family of Yaakov. Yaakov sends Yehuda ahead to make all of the arrangements before they get there. And then finally, Yaakov and Yosef meet. Yosef harnesses his own chariot in order to meet up with his father, and there is crying. Yosef then gives instructions to his brothers. You're going to appear before Paro, for Pharaoh. Tell Pharaoh that you are shepherds. The reason for this is that the Egyptians don't like shepherds very much. And so this way they'll be able to live separately from the rest of the Egyptians, which is a very good idea. It would seem that Yosef wants to try to avoid assimilation. So tell them you are shepherds and that you will live in Goshen, and I'm making those arrangements. And then Yosef selects 5 of his brothers and presents them and his father to Paro. Paro asks Yaakov how old he is, and he says, I am 130 years old, and Yaakov blesses Paro. In the last part of the Parsha, we're told of how Yosef has supervised and continues to supervise the sale of the food during the famine. People buy food from them from using money. They buy the food that had been stored up during the years of plenty. And when they run out of money, Yosef accepts an exchange of food for livestock. They offer, when they have no livestock to offer, they offer their lands and themselves as slaves in exchange for food, but Yosef instead purchases the land, which becomes the property of Paro. And then Yosef relocates the population in order to make this plan the most effective. So the land of Egypt becomes the property of the Paro, of the king, with the exception of the lands that belong to the Egyptian priests. Yosef provides the people with seed so that they can replant their land, and the arrangement is that 1/5 of the produce will go back to Paro, and this becomes the law in Egypt. 1/5, the 20% income tax, if you think of it that way. In the very, very end of the parasha, Israel, that is Yaakov and his family, settles and becomes prosperous in Goshen. When the time comes for Yosef to meet up with his father, so he harnesses the chariot himself, and as Rashi points out, uh, in this case, because of his great love and wanting to show honor to his father, he himself harnesses the chariot. He doesn't give that job to a servant. And then we have the expression Vayera elav, and he appeared before him, which is ambiguous. Rashi says it means Yosef appeared before his father. We'll see another reading uh, also. But while we're staying with Rashi, then it says that he wept on his neck, od, which Rashi understands meaning a great deal. He wept copiously. He just kept crying. This is, according to Rashi, it is Yosef who's doing the crying. He cried more than usual, but Yaakov, says Rashi, did not cry at all. Instead, he he accepted this moment and used this moment to recite the Shema. There's much that can be said about this, but on a very, very simple level, Yaakov says, I can die now because I have seen you. So if Yaakov feels that he might be close to death, well, what does a Jew do when he feels death approaching but to recite the Shema? This is the way that Rashi understands it. The Ramban has a slightly different approach. He says that Yaakov, who is already 130 years old, his eyesight is going, and so when Yosef appeared dressed as an Egyptian, he did not at first recognize him. Uh, After all, his own brothers didn't recognize him at first. So the Torah says that when he appeared before his father, he didn't recognize who he was until he said that he appeared to him, in the sense that he got close enough that he was able to discern who he was. And once that is the case, he says, I may die since I have now seen your face. The Ramban insists that it is, uh, according to the Pshat, that it's Yaakov who cries before Yosef, because after all, Yaakov, the elderly father who has thought that his son, beloved son Yosef is dead, it makes much more sense that Yaakov would be the one to cry, both because of his age and because of his life experience, living with so many years of doubt about the fate of Yosef. It makes much more sense that Yaakov is the one who is crying. It's So the Ramban gives as a pshat, alternative to the Midrash, that it is more likely that Yaakov is the one who cries. I thank you all for joining me for this exploration of Parashat Vayiggash. This has been Rabbi Abraham Fischer for Parasha Highlights and Insights, saying Shalom.